background sign was Jeff Carlson. Your with you is up backwards.
Is
You know
it?
that? Yes. I was saying there's a yes, not this, that.
I
So
had two options and I thought I chose the right one. I'm such a moron.
just wanted to, just now that the meeting's over, if I
Yeah,
told
thanks.
you.
How's that? Is that better?
There. Oh, is that what you're saying?
Jam et ekorf eb
Yes, yep, most definitely. Fourth.
Oi. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, we're back in the public meeting.
Just in time.
We have an official business resolution from Councillor Croson, or,
We still have to do 4.1.
yeah. It's official business resolution in the public meeting.
4.1 is the capital improvement plan.
Oh, capital improvement plan,
Do
okay.
you want to do the in-camera motions or do the 4.1?
I was gonna, so we didn't forget about appointing Mr. Thornton to the police commission?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. All right. From Councillor Croson, be it resolved that Council direct that the closed meeting discussions, reports, documents, and presentations with respect to board, commission, and committee matter remain confidential pursuant to Section 17, harmful to personal privacy, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And further, be it resolved that that Council appoint Mr. Doug Thornton to the Lethbridge Police Commission until the organizational meeting of Council of 2021 for the completion of the vacant term. Councillor Croson?
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. I think this is self-explanatory. The three members of the committee met. They went through the various people who had applied. They're bringing forward the name of Doug Thornton. This would be to finish off this term, and then the next council would have the opportunity to go through the process and to appoint members to the police commission at that time. Unless there's any questions, I will call the vote.
Okay. There are no questions. The question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Okay, 4.1, is there a resolution?
The resolution for 4.1, prior to being tabled, just one sec here, was made by Councillor
Carlson.
Carlson to receive for information and forward to the next council after the 2021 election for their consideration, seconded by the mayor. So that is on the floor right now.
Everybody sees the resolution?
Mayor Spearman, Councillor Hoffman.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I did actually submit a motion as well. I respect that the question was asked regarding, and Councillor Carlson stepped forward to present this motion first. I'm wondering if we have the possibility of at least acknowledging or looking at the other motion, dealing with it first. So this one would be the backup.
Okay, so City Clerk advises that Councillor Carlson would have to withdraw the motion.
I don't know what the other motion is. I'd like to vote on this. If in all fairness to Councillor Kaufman, I do understand that I was just first past the post, first in, but this is my desire for this. I appreciate the work that's been presented, the work that's being done. I just also know that we've thrown a couple of curves at this council and our staff with the SPCs and the changes we've already thrown at them, plus the recent operating budget. And so I think we've proven that we can, as a council, open the budget if circumstances require it. I'm at this juncture, I'm not willing to commit new resources in taking the city treasurer's numbers at face value. That seems a pretty steep price to pay. So I would like to continue with this motion that we receive it as information, and that the incoming council be presented with this information, and they can decide, and they'll have much more time to decide rather than 4 days before we go into CIP. So that I'd like to vote on this, and I hope my colleagues will support this. But I'm open to debate.
Okay, so that was a question. Would you prepared to withdraw? The motion, the answer is no.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problem. I'm just trying to, we're in questions on the motion. So next, Councillor Morrow, do you have a question on the motion?
Well, yeah, I do. So the screen that I'm looking at, 4.1 is entitled Operating Budget Resource Requirements. 4.1 in my agenda package is Capital Improvement Program Options.
Yes.
Which one? So there's two different 4.1s? My hard copy says Capital Improvement Program Options.
Certainly. Councillor Morrow, Ryan here from Legislative Services. The name of the item was changed post publication of the agenda. The item was not included in the agenda on Tuesday last week at the publication. It was not made available until last Friday, and at that point the name was changed and rectified on the public agenda. Apologies for your printed material not having the same title.
So we're actually dealing with the operating budget resource requirements.
Yes.
And that's what was presented by Ms. Pinkson earlier, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to be clear. And now Councillor Kaufman has an amendment, and we can't deal with his amendment unless this gets withdrawn, and this is not getting withdrawn. Is that correct?
Right. It would have to be defeated, and then we would deal with the amendment. It's not an amendment. He has a resolution. He's a different resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Miyashiro, question?
Motion to divide.
Okay.
So
do you want to deal with each clause separately?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that is a motion to divide. We entertain that right away and find out if councillors are in favor or not. Okay. Okay. Do we need a seconder for a motion to divide? If so, I will second it. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Chairman. I just believe that receiving this presentation as information is a great thing. If we're not going to move ahead with any direction regarding the presentation, whether or not this goes to the next council, I think the information is there. If there's a desire, it's not going to do them any good anyway, because they would have to make this decision for the next cycle. They couldn't make this decision in October to do budget and to do their budget and CIP like that at that point anyway. They would have to wait until partway through their term anyway. So I just don't think it needs to be part of the same motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you provide your rationale. So let's go all in favor of the motion to divide, and can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Councillor Parker.
In favor. In favor.
Acting Mayor Crowson.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Campbell.
In favor.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor?
Councillor Hagan.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Favor.
Councillor Miyashiro.
In favor.
Carried 7-2.
Okay, so we will deal with each clause separately. We will start with the first clause. Be it resolved that council receive this presentation as information. Councillor Carlson?
Thanks, Mayor Spearman. I've pretty much said my belief that the resource requirements are a little steep as we've tried to trim back our operating budget. This seems to be a fairly hefty increase. There may be better ways to do it, which is why I'm saying, or other ways to do it, which is why I do still support the second clause about letting the council of the day, the incoming council, be provided the information early so that they have time to think about it. It seems we always come to these decisions when budgets are in front of us rather than thinking about them in advance. So that's why I think the information should be provided them sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Kaufman?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I should just remind my colleagues that I've made 2 attempts to actually move to a 2-year cycle. So council's had opportunity, and I'm pretty certain at least one of them was outside of a budget cycle. So we've had some time. If you've been around for at least 10 years, you've had some time to actually ponder this. I am somebody who believes firmly that process dictates outcome. And so that when you present information in a certain manner, providing challenges to it, it's going to actually create more cause for pause than it is to actually move forward. I recognize that this first motion is to receive presentation as information, and I thank Ms. Pinkson and her staff for the work, because this is a tremendous amount of work. She's heading into budget, and her staff are heading into budget, and still we have this information in front of us. I appreciate that. This is a motion to receive as information, and I appreciate that. Out of principle, for the fact that I think we should be doing more than just receiving this information, I will be voting against this.
Okay, thank you. Is that your question? Okay.
I thought we were
Sorry, I thought we were in debate.
All right, debate.
I waive my debate, Your Worship, till the end.
Okay. Anyone else for debate? Okay. Okay. Councillor Kaufman?
Do I get to debate again? I don't think I, at least I don't remember.
No, the city clerk said your hand was up. I thought you had debated, but yeah, thanks.
My hand was up for debate, which I've apparently already done in questions, so thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Councillor Carlson, go ahead and close.
Thanks, Mayor Spearman, and I do appreciate that current council has had a lot of time. Thank you to Councillor Kaufman to ponder the ideas and the process. But in front of us today was the resource requirements, which seemed to be a fairly hefty upward pressure on the operating budget. And so I can't support moving forward with increasing that at this time. So I ask for my colleagues' support.
Thank you. Okay, question has been called. We can do a roll call vote.
Acting Mayor Crowson.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Campbell.
In favor.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
Opposed?
Councillor Higgin.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed.
Councillor Miyashiro.
In favor.
Councillor Parker.
Opposed.
And that's lost 4-5.
Okay, so do we go on to the second? We said we'd divide, so do we deal with the second part of this?
I urge my colleagues to vote this down because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Let's hear Councillor Kaufman's motion.
Okay, so we did vote to divide, so I think we have to vote on this. So
Yep.
Second part of the motion from Councillor Carlson is further be it resolved that this presentation be provided to the next City Council after the 2021 election. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Deputy Mayor Campbell.
Opposed.
Mayor Spearman.
Opposed?
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Councillor Kaufman.
Opposed.
Councillor Higgin.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Favor.
Councillor Miyashiro.
Opposed.
Councillor Parker,
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Crowson.
Opposed.
That's lost 1 to 8.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a resolution now from Councillor Kaufman. Is there a seconder? I'll read it and then we'll find out if we have. Okay, nobody's seen it? Okay, I guess I'm the seconder, right? Moved by Councillor Kaufman, be it resolved that for the purpose of good governance, City Council accept the timing strategy from the City Manager on the change to the budget cycle process. And further be it resolved that City Council instruct the City Manager to review, where possible, streamline the operating and capital budget processes to reduce the complexity and cost of assembling and presenting budgets to Council and the community. And further be it resolved that the City Manager present his review and recommendations to City Council no later than August 31st, 2022. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and as anticipated, there are questions, so I'll move to that first, I guess.
Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks, Mayor Spearman. Just a quick question. The timing strategy from the City Manager, was this the City Manager's recommendation? Is that what this is saying?
Well, technically, we instructed the City Manager. Thank you, Councillor Carlson, for the question. Technically, we instructed the City Manager to do this. It's the Treasurer who does all the work. The City Manager gets all the glory. So that's why this is here. I will, however, on the date, I think it is incumbent upon me at least to check in with the City Manager as to whether August 31st, 2022 is an acceptable date, or that should be pushed into early 2023.
I think that date of 2022 is fine.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Carlson?
Yep, thank you. I guess that works for me. My second question, if I can, Your Worship, through you to the City Manager or his workhorse. What I read in the report from the City Treasurer, I guess the City Manager, through the City Treasurer, was that this has a fairly hefty budget implication that we have not budgeted for. City Manager, do we have to open the budget to increase resources without knowing how you're going to magically find the, and I don't have it in front of me, 650,000 and 5 new staff to accomplish this?
I just want to be clear. Perhaps I misread the resolution. I thought this was to look at ways to. Oh, sorry.
No.
Yeah, I'm looking.
The resolution says make it so.
Yeah.
And if you can, find it cheaper. But if you can't, how do we find that money? And do we reopen the budget?
Yeah, I'm not sure about reopening the budget, but certainly looking for where that would come from. And we haven't looked at where the additional funding would come from to this at this point or to this point, unless Ms. Pinkson, you've given that some thought, but I know we haven't discussed it.
That would be additional pressure to the operating budget, and likely that would start in 2023. So, but I'm, to be honest, not super clear on what this resolution actually means, because if we're coming back in August of 2022, we're already halfway through budget at that point, operating budget in 2022. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. We would need those resources in place if we're intending to do a CIP and an operating budget starting in January of 2022.
If I may, Mayor Spearman, to Councillor Carlson as well to the City Manager, Ms. Pinkson. The intent, yes, make it so. Thank you for the presentation. Make it so. Second operative clause, review the process. And as Ms. Pinkson just identified, we'd be starting both the capital and the operating in January of 2022. So this is an opportunity for the city manager to go through the process as well, others to go through the process, new eyes, fresh eyes, and to look at how we do things and bring in some of the experience and expertise we brought on board, and then present back to council the recommendations. I recognize that there's no identifications to where the funds come from. If this is something that council wants, then it's incumbent upon the city manager to find the funding for it. So that's where the philosophy around this lies. I hope, does that provide clarity to the city manager and Ms. Pinkson for sure?
It's clear to me.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carlson, does that answer your questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Higgin.
I guess further to Councillor Carlson's question, we'd heard earlier of the cost implications to this. And so I guess my question to the mover is, if this pass, it looks like it would come with the cost of 5 additional staff out of the gate to get this rolling. Are you in support of that? Considering that the city manager may find funding somewhere else, but we know that that's going to be there, is that okay?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hagan. The intent of all of this is to move to a 2-year budget cycle, operating budget cycle, to understand that council is a steward of the budget. Council is the one who owns the budget, nobody else, and we steward it on behalf of the taxpayer. We steward it on behalf of the ratepayer in the community. We have to recognize that governance is our primary role here, and that involves overseeing the budget process. I'm not happy with what I saw today, personally. But as I stated in my comments earlier, we're all operating in a system that's been created and inherited. And what we have is we have new people in place. We have some new eyes in place. We've got the opportunity to pivot and to change accordingly. The second operative clause is saying, look, there's going to be some financial consequence to this. Can we find a way of streamlining the process and present that to the new council no later than August 31st of 2022? And if that date has to get bumped, that date has to get bumped. We have to do this right. So yeah, unfortunately at the moment, it's about having to address what Ms. Pinkson has presented today and look at 1 year, possibly 2, but hopefully from the process, we can understand how provincial governments do it. We can understand how the city of Calgary and other cities do it, where they're actually doing annual budgets, but they're doing it in a much different process than what we're doing. There's something about the mechanisms that I don't need to get into because that's in the weeds. My job, our job, is governance, and it's about governance oversight. Does that answer your question?
It does, and actually I'll have an amendment to it, but I'll wait.
Okay. Councillor Miyashiro, question?
Thank you. To Councillor Kaufman, and so the first clause, to clarify that you're asking us to accept the timing strategy that was presented to us earlier. Secondly, they need to streamline it to reduce the complexity and the costs. And then third, they present the review and recommendations next August, or August of 2022. So really, you want them to do that, but what if council in August of 2022 doesn't accept those recommendations to the budget process? That's a possibility, right?
That's absolutely, Councillor Morrow, that is absolutely a possibility. It's a possibility in absolutely every motion that we pass here today has the possibility of a future council making a different direction. As we know, we are all operating in an existing budget process that was predetermined several councils ago, and we continue to operate in that. This is about changing that, hopefully improving it to something better. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so if the administration goes away and works on changing the budget cycle process as was laid out today, and it gets presented to council, the new council, 2 Augusts from now, and they say, no, we don't like it, we want to keep the same process, then that's a possibility as well.
Sorry, no, it's not about change. No, it's about implementing the new process, but streamline budget.
Right,
So it's
but
it's
that's
the
not,
rec-
you
the
might want
recommend-
to work on the wording then, because it
it's
says,
the-
present his review and recommendations for that change.
prevent his review and recommendations.
So we're saying, we accept the change of the timing now.
Yes.
Furthermore, you're saying that the council of August 2022 is gonna look at the recommendations and review and approve them. So that's kind of where I'm thinking we can do whatever we want now. If you change the process now, the city manager comes to the council of the day and says, here's what I want to do, and they say, no, we don't like it. So we're back kind of where we were, right? So they're going to try and operationalize what we saw today, but we're not implementing it. The next council is being asked to implement it, which they don't have to do.
No.
Is that correct?
No, that's actually not correct. So you're not seeing the second and third operative clauses as being connected? I think maybe that's where we're differing. The third operative clause about presenting the review and recommendations,
right,
is actually stemming from the second operative clause, not the first. Would you like those two for simplicity or clarity? Would you like those two to actually be just one paragraph?
Yeah, it would make more sense to me that way, because the way I'm reading it is that we want them to go away and do all this work, and then all of a sudden it goes back to council in August of 2022 to approve.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. No, I appreciate the amendment, and anything that makes it clearer makes it easy to deal with. Thank you.
Councillor Morrow?
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman, I thank you, and I really feel for you, because I know you and I have been trying to do this for many, many years, and I don't know if I'm smarter than you. I kind of quit and give up, and you're just still going at it, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for that. But I have some questions for you. Put this just in simple, I want simplicity. So right now, the way I see it is one council approves the capital budget, and the next council approves the operating budget. And we do this every 4 years. We did do an operating budget review in 2 years this term. I think we did it mostly because of COVID, and I think maybe because you had something to do with it, with one of your reso. So my question to you, I just want to understand. Tell me, if I support this resolution, what will future councils' budget processes look like, and what will they be dealing, and when? And I don't need specific dates. I mean, yeah, I think you know what I mean. Can you help me understand that?
Yes, Councillor Merle, thank you. And unless I'm mistaken, Mr. City Manager can certainly correct me. What was presented today is that once City Council will deliberate the CIP, and that will coincide with a deliberation of an operating budget, but the operating budget will be deliberated twice in a cycle. So instead of the current process, was elected, establishes an operating budget, and then doesn't touch it again until after the next election, there will be 2 operating budget deliberations in a cycle. There will still continue to be 1 CIP deliberation, because I think we all recognize that long-term capital requirements are more significant. Does that clarify?
Yeah, so we would approve a CIP, and the next 4 years, the next council commencing October of this year, they will be going through 2 operating budget cycles. And then at the end of their term, like we are doing now, they will go through a CIP.
In a normal structure, absolutely. There is going to be 1 term where it's proposed that there's an offset, but in perpetuity, yes, absolutely. It's how you've actually laid it out. 1 deliberation on CIP to set the 4-year budget, 2 deliberations on operating.
Okay, but if I support your resolution, that still does not solve my issue where one council, the 4-year council, does both CIP and is accountable and responsible for the operating costs that go with that CIP. It's still forwarded to the next council, is what I'm hearing, or am I wrong?
No, you are, and I'm going to have to close my window here in order to open my Hopefully that hasn't closed on me as well. If you look at the presentation from Ms. Pinkson, you will see that the CIP moves to earlier in the cycle. So if election is 2025, somebody has their microphone on and there's paper rustling. Could I just ask everybody to mute, please? Thank you, whoever did that, appreciate that. So election 2025, October 2025, the council will deliberate both the CIP and the operating budget in 2026. So you're actually establishing your own operating budget based on your own CIP. That was one of the objectives of doing this, is to get the cycles matched up, and Ms. Pinkson has done an excellent job at accomplishing that.
Okay, thanks for that. And my final question to you then, or whoever, but I'll ask it to you. If I support this resolution, I'm also supporting hiring 5 staff and finding, whether the city manager or Ms. Pinkson find it or council finds it somewhere, an additional, whatever that number was, 650,000 to do what you are attempting to do. Is that correct?
Based on the information that Ms. Pinkson has presented to council today, yes.
Thanks for your
part. The second part of the motion is about addressing that as the next council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
Thanks, Mayor Sperman. Just, it's a hard question for me to ask because I'm not in support of the motion, but I think the motion needs clarity. I'm trying to recall back to Ms. Pinkson's presentation on behalf of the city manager, that there were still some questions around what we're doing in this CIP. Are we approving it? And maybe Ms. Pinkson can help remind me. And maybe that was answered, maybe I forgot it or was unclear. But I thought there was still some lack of clarity on what we're doing next week then, if this passes.
Thank you. I understood it, that if it passes as it's been presented, Ms. Pinkson would be doing the CIP with that extended year to it. I understood that was going to be the normal process in order to line things up, but you're absolutely correct. Maybe that clarification needs to be provided. And I see Mr. Dalton has beamed in.
I was just going to say that's my understanding, was that it would sync up and be fully operational, if you will, for the council after next. That CIP would be extended to 5 years to allow the 2 operating and CIP cycles to synchronize.
Okay, because in my presentation there was a little thing that had a little bit of red ink with a question mark, so that wasn't clear to me.
Perhaps Ms. Pinkson can confirm too.
Sorry, Haley.
The presentation did include question marks. It would be the recommendation that in order to sync the CIPs up, it would be 2022 to 2026. But I should highlight then that means next council will not deliberate a CIP unless they reopen it.
So they will have no CIP next council. This resolution would cut them off from that option, is what I'm hearing. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I see none. Let's move on to debate. Councillor Kaufman?
I will close, as my colleagues have heard me speak of this ad nauseum. Thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Sperman. Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. I know this has been something you have been talking about for some time, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it and all that entails. However, I just can't support it at this time. It's the reason I tried to do my original resolution was to give incoming council all the information early on, so they're not doing this as I sort of see it in their final days as a council trying to figure out what to do. They've got lots of lead time, and I do know that we've pondered it a lot, the process, but when I saw the actual resources required and the dollars required, the FTEs required, we spent a lot of time last year sharpening our pencils through Ms. Pinkson and Mr. Dalton to reduce our budget levels, to reduce our FTEs. And we did that very diligently. But when I look at the current information in front of us, supporting this resolution would undo a lot of that good work. And I'm not ready to do that at this time, but I would heartily encourage this information to be in front of an incoming council early so they can get a handle on it. So I appreciate the work, but I can't support it.
Thank you. Councillor Miyashiro.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Kaufman for bringing this forward, and he has given this a lot of thought, obviously, over time, and I understand what you're trying to do. I do understand too that I think there may be different ways of achieving what you're asking. Having a 4-year budget doesn't mean we can't review it every year. What a 4-year budget does, from my perspective, it gives a bit of certainty over time for departments, for contractors, for contractees, for fee-for-service organizations. What we did this time when Councillor Crowson brought forward our budget reopening was a way for us to look at the budget in a different way to respond to an unprecedented circumstance. That council can do that any time. Councillor Carlson's question to Ms. Pinkson about would that cut out the next council from deliberating on CIP, I think was a great question, because what we just said to them was, your next term you don't get a say in the future of CIP for the city, is what we said. So if there's a different way where we can bring CIP forward a year or so that they're not doing it in the election year, so that won't be so close to the election. If there's other ways to do that, I'm fully in favor. But as it stands, I will not be supporting this.
Anybody else? Councillor Parker.
I'm going to support the resolution because when you read the resolution, this isn't something that just came over the wall. We've been discussing this for years, as Councillor Kaufman has stated in his prior discussion. And when you read the resolution, it talks about the words possible streamline, finding ways to do things more efficiently, more effectively. So it's not written in stone, but it gives the city manager direction that let's find a different way of doing this. Let's find a new way of doing it. And so it's not written in stone. It's just taking the next step forward. And for that reason, I will be supporting it.
I need a point of clarity on that, if I can.
Well, you've already spoken. Let each member debate.
But I need clarity on that statement because it is writing it in stone. It's saying that this is how it shall be.
The reason why I said that, it says the word possible in the resolution.
The second, but the first part, I need clarity on this. The first part says, this is what we're doing. And the city manager can look at, sorry, that's the way I read it. Am I reading it wrong?
Well, I'm going to finish up my debate here, Mr. Mayor.
I really, our process is everybody gets to debate one at a time, and we shouldn't have people interjecting when other people are debating. So please complete, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. And I'm not offended by the point of order, because I think it's important to begin. But when you read the end of it, it says present his review. That being the city manager's review and recommendation to city council. So the next city council really does hold the hammer in the end in regards to everything. So all it's saying is bringing some possible alternatives. And that's how I'm interpreting it. And so for that reason, I will be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. listening to everybody, listening to no one's really clear on some of what this messaging is. I'm going to throw out a motion to postpone for 2 weeks because I think we need to just do some looking at this and thinking about maybe some amendments that need to be made to bring this forward for clarity. So I'd like to make a motion to postpone it this time for 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask our city clerk if a motion to postpone comes forward, we deal with it right away.
Yeah, it does take precedence, so you deal with that right away. It doesn't need a seconder.
Okay, it needs a seconder.
I'll second that. That
Okay.
was,
Okay.
I was putting mine in. That's what my amendment was.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Crowson, seconded by Councillor Hagan. Can we have a roll call on the motion to postpone, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Spearman. You're first on the list.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's Joe. Just point of, I need to understand this. Just a question, if I may, regarding process.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. This is going to be postponed for 2 weeks, but we're starting our CIP on Monday. So I'm kind of, doesn't admin need to know this before Monday?
Yes.
So what would this postponing, does that mean we would have to postpone our CIP process then? Like, I'm trying to.
No.
What Ms. Pinkson presented, and Haley, if you can weigh in, was that, and that's why she brought it forward earlier today, was that if council directed us to move forward with this this new timing strategy, that we would need to facilitate a CIP deliberation for council that would extend 5 years. So that would clearly have an impact on next week. We need to know whether we were asking council to deliberate over a 4-year period or a 5-year period.
With respect, though, couldn't we do that provisionally? Because it wouldn't be until May 18th that we'd make the final CIP decisions. So the decision would be made at the same time we'd be voting on this.
Would that work, Haley?
Oh, sorry. The input for next week is how we structure available funding, how we structure the binder, where, like, there's, you know, projects might need to be pushed out depending on if council's going to consider 4 years or 5. So we were just looking for input in terms of how we structure next week.
Okay. You can either vote for or against postponement. So we'll do the roll call.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Hagan.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
In favor.
Councillor Miyashiro.
In favor.
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Crowson.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Campbell.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
Okay, so we're postponing for 2 weeks.
Mayor Spearman, could I have a question?
Sure.
Just for process. So this comes back in 2 weeks. Is it the identical one, but it could still be amended at that time? Is that correct?
Yes, it can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to the omnibus motions. For closed meeting, be it resolved that council direct that the closed meeting discussions, reports, documents, and presentations with respect to human resources matter, land matter, social service matter, remain confidential pursuant to section 16, harmful to business interests of a third party, 19, confidential evaluations, 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Moved by Councillor Campbell.
Call a question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, 8-1,
I'm opposed as well. Thank you.
7-2. Councillors Hagan and Morrow opposed. Next one is Capital Improvement Process, CIP Process 10.5. Be it resolved that Council direct that the closed meeting discussions, reports and documents and presentations with respect to Capital Improvement Program, CIP Process, remain confidential pursuant to Sections 24, Advice from Officials, of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and further be it resolved that due to the comprehensive public engagement that has occurred, Council waive the procedure bylaw to limit public participation to written submissions only for the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, deliberations at the Economic Standing Policy Committee meetings of May 10th to 14th, 2021. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I thought you said Councillor Croson. But unless there's any questions, I just think that we need to make sure that that we publicize and inform the public quite heavily about the written submissions for CIP. There's been extensive online engagement and extensive economic standing policy engagement, but we need to ensure that the public know that they can still communicate with council. Please have them written submissions. And if there's nothing further, I'll call for the vote.
Question has been called. All in favor? Are any opposed?
Opposed.
Yeah.
Fine.
Joe.
Joe and, okay, so Councillor Morrow and Councillor Hagan. Anybody else? Approved 7-2. Thank you. Okay, and now have a resolution from Councillor Parker for adjournment, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting of City Council until Tuesday, May the 18th, 2021. All in favor? Are any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.